About a few thousand.
Okay.
No, very generally. Roger started out with talking about visceral acting versus technical acting. When it comes to Shakespeare, you need that common web. And that is, I think, the great strength of the American theater. I've worked with British actors, and I work with a British director now. The approach always is on the language, on the meter, on the poetry, and that's well and good because we need that. But we need more. Or, as Roger says, we don't want these things to be museum pieces. If it's only about those words, and it is about the words, don't get me wrong, it sounds contradictory, but you can do a stage reading with a script in your hand, the sonnets. You know, and it's all well and lovely, but it's not drama. The best thing anyone can do with Shakespeare, and with any script, is learn these lines backwards and forwards, overlearn them, and then you have time for the emotion to come through. But you can't be thinking about these lines. When we get into scenes, another thing about Shakespeare is you can't, generally, all rules can be broken. You can't hear somebody say something and sit back and absorb it. You have to be thinking about it while it's being said. Almost everything was rushed today, and I think that's probably a script problem, very common. Rosalind did an interesting thing when he broke away from Phoebe, talked to the shepherd, and at one point sort of talked out to us. A little bit more of that. You're going to find times in Shakespeare where it's actually the audience being addressed, especially in these comedies. And the early comedies are now what we would call farces. It's the later comedies, the problem comedies, that we have had problems with. Another general rule is find the music. If every word is important, then none of them are. You've got to know every word. Some of them may be sort of throwaway lines. But when it gets to something, and especially when you boil it down to the most important line in the scene, and sometimes they are one-syllable words. If you have 4 one-syllable words following each other, that means something, generally. I am a Jew. That's important. It can't be thrown away. Why? Because I'm a Jew. No. Well, anything can work, and there are no hard and fast rules. But that's one thing. Now, and Hamlet is, okay, you've got the most famous speech probably in all of Shakespeare. I would practice this since he's talking to the audience, to himself, to whatever. There's nobody else on stage. He's not going to be frantic. He's not going to be emoting a whole lot. There's emotion, but it's underneath the surface. The exercise I would give you is practice it in a mirror, as still as you can, and see if that helps finally with the audience, rather than take things out with a soliloquy that personally. You probably have to bring things in a little bit. The music is everything. Natalia is the lady who did the lovely. See, finding the music, and she did it in a contemporary monologue, is so important when you have a script that's 400 years old. And one other thing, and then I'll shut up, because these are general notes to kick off Shakespeare season. But look for irony. If you're talking about a brutal father who almost killed you, oh, there's not much funny about that. But in relating an emotion, there can be. He almost killed me. I'm not saying that's the right choice, but these are things to look for in Shakespeare or in contemporary pieces. Or Chantal, is that your name?
Yes.
Lovely, lovely monologue, but I would, what might put the cherry on the cake there is just a little more irony. It's only the liquor that's going to kill us. Nothing else. Maybe not the right choice, but when you can find humor in a tragic situation or tragedy, especially when we get into the Shakespearean comedies, in a humorous situation, because these people don't know it's comedy. The audience knows. We all know it's all for fun. But these people think the world is ending. And sometimes the more tragic you can play it, even if it seems farcical, the better it is. General term is irony. And I'll shut up.
And Chris, that's what I'm getting at with Shylock Clemens and laughter and the irony, what is normally considered, what you consider very serious emotional stuff. Is the words are there and the ideas are going to be serious no matter what if you say them, but people have to find ironies in life about serious things, or they would commit suicide. They have to find a way to escape certain pain, and laughter is a way, irony is a way to do that, to hide that shame, to hide the pain from themselves sometimes, not to mention other people, you know. So, yeah, great, Jack. Ed?
Yeah, I want to elaborate on what Jack said, which is true. And it's, when we speak a contemporary monologue, when we read a play, a contemporary play, it's nothing to us. We know the words, we just rattle them off. When you do Shakespeare, you got to get to that same point. And Jack said to know the words. What Jack said, just know the words. Backward and forward. Don't look at them as anything unusual, because most of those words are not unusual. They're English. They're just put in weird places, and there are contumely, there are certain words that are not used anymore. But you got to make them your own, and you have to make them as if you're speaking it. You're rattling it off as it's natural, the way you speak it, the way you speak contemporary English. Then you start looking at the meter and raising it up to a higher level, because that's what it's about. And it's not about actor studio mumbling. It's about archetypes, huge people. Now, within that, Craig, it's getting really, really much more organic. But even Shylock may not know exactly what he's going to say. He said, let me give you an example. There's a Jew, you know, you giving us a laundry list? Fish it out of your brain. You know what you're going to, you know what you're going to say. This is a very bright man. This is a man who thinks on his feet, but he doesn't have a list. He doesn't have a laundry list ahead of time. This man can wiggle out of anything verbally. So find that, and it will take it out of a famous speech. And then the to be or not to be, I don't envy any actor that has to do it, because it's been done, probably you got to make it. You can't do Hamlet speaking this great speech. You have to do Francesco saying it organically. It's just a man contemplating death. It's not a famous speech that has been done to death. It should be Francesco speaking to himself, not to 2,000 people.
Yeah, if I may, I would clarify that. That would be maybe the next step. For me, I would say that would be the next step. But the result, the final result, would be to combine what you're talking about, which is making it Francesco just talking about it and getting the poetry also.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Well,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but if you just say make it yourself, that's not poetry. I'm sorry. So it has to be more than that. It has to, the next step, I would say, for him, would be to try to, bring it into yourself.
Now, can I just go in very quickly?
Yeah.
Speaking of poetry, Francesca's dealing with this right now because I'm directing her in Scenes from Richard III, and I'm going back to a lot of the poetic words. And he says, to be or not to be. When they first, Shakespeare heard the word question as question. He heard the ION because that's the way it was pronounced. There's a way to say to be or not to be, that is the question. It gives it we all know the word question, but he's talking about the eternal question, the question about life and death. Shakespeare's telling you this, not to say to be or not to be, that is a question. That is the question. You can become poetic any way you want, but you gotta be poetic. Same thing with Othello, when he says that was the cause. And he says the cause 3 times.
Yes.
We have to hear that word cause, we've never heard it before.
Yes.
It has to, that is the cause.
Good.
That comes after it becomes organic, but you gotta do it. Now, I don't know, not everybody's gonna agree with it, but to me, a Rembrandt painting is a Rembrandt painting. It always looks like a Rembrandt painting. I think Shakespeare should look like Shakespeare as close as it can to what he heard. And he uses rules, and we have to play with those rules to a point. Said my piece.
So, specifically, lovely. I asked Marissa to do it in Spanish because she had done it in Caracas, I think, years ago.
A decade ago.
Huh?
Like a decade ago.
Yeah, and next she'll work on it in English.
I have mine second half.
The play's 500 years old, don't worry
Huh?
about it. The play's 500 years old, don't worry about it when you did it.
But in your case, you are bilingual, and quite good at both languages. I mean, at least I can hear. So doing in Spanish often for you is almost like bringing it maybe a little closer to you emotionally before you do it into your second language. Chelsea, with Puck, yeah, you're playing with it. You're playing with it and getting, part of the playfulness is in the sounds of those words that you can have fun with, rather than just playfulness for the sake of playfulness. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to be playful. The words can be playful. Because really, actually, in that part of the play, I'm not sure how playful she really is. It's at the end of the play. It's not the Puck that's kind of doing this. She's a little more serious. So the playfulness is now in the words themselves more, in that part of the play, rather than Puck, 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 I think. CJ, that old clown, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that it's not being camped up and clown-like in an
Yeah.
obvious way. It's a real person, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, a lot of clowns,
So I
often
see.
people do, you know, I'm a clown, you know? But there could be elements of it,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's yourself. There could be elements where she finds a little of the clown,
Mm-hmm.
more than maybe we're doing now. I don't know. I would
Yeah.
explore that
Mm-hmm.
in the character. With Tom, I guess.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm first going into work on this particular
Right.
scene with Tom Crockett.
Yeah, okay.
So I'll find
Developing.
the scene with Tom Spears, I have more of it.
Craig, it's getting much, each time you do it, I think it gets a little more familiar, and I hope a little more comfortable, because it seems to be, you know. Yeah. And, I think to continue working, we'll just get even more, to see. But I think he is pulling the twang a little bit, putting that little, you know, chose to do it serious, a little bit serious today, but that's okay. It's his interpretation. I think he's having fun with that. To hide the anger he has. Nicely done. You had a nice sense of using yourself. Chantal, I don't know the play, but you seem to be very much using yourself with the material, and it's clear. It was nice and clear. Yeah, and actually good. Your Helen it's a great role for you. My question would be, how desperate is she in this moment?
She's actually getting like drunk as time passes, but she's getting there.
What's that?
She's getting to that point where she's just desperate. She doesn't want to become anything like her mother.
Right, so it's pretty desperate. But I would ask the same thing to Ainsley. How desperate is Helen in this scene?
This is a big, like,
Hmm? Yeah.
I think it's like the beginning. She's not like super agitated yet.
I don't know about, I'm not asking about agitation as much as what's at stake for her in this scene that you're talking about. What does she need? What does she need to do? What does she need to do? What does she need?
Make him stop saying, like,
Make him
playing
what?
a joke on.
Make him
Make Lysander stop, like, playing a joke on her.
a joke on you.
Yeah. Because she thinks that he's making fun of her by saying all
Because
these
she what?
nice things. Because I said she thinks that he's making fun of her because he's saying all these nice
Sure.
things and
And how
normally
does she
he's
feel
an
about
ass
that?
to her. She's, well, she feels like, what's the word? Not like, it's like when you're angry, but you're like embarrassed and angry.
Yeah, whatever that is. A man or a woman?
This is.
Who's she talking about?
Woman.
Lysander. Lysander.
No, that's a man.
Lysander's a man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're a woman, so
Man.
sorry.
A man is making fun of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty desperate. Have you ever had a boyfriend make fun of you in front of other? Do you do it privately or in front of other people?
They're, at the moment, they're alone. I think they're alone at the moment.
Well,
The other two characters aren't
yeah,
coming.
but it's painful. Her, there's more there. There's more at stake for you. And the words themselves, the sound, you know. And Francesca, you always have a good sense and command of the language, and this time it was very clear also. It had changes within it, but I wonder where the quiet part of it would be. I very rarely would ask somebody to do that, because most of the time I need to get more sound. But with you could find places to relax maybe in it, you know. That's why I was saying the next step for Francesco would be to make it more real for himself, and then after that, the poetry. But another actor, there are actors who are very poetic. You know, excuse me, what I mean is there somebody else would do the speech, another actor, and be very organic with it, very real. I've seen, kind of actor studio approach. Well, the next step for that actor would be forget that. Not forget it, but let's go for the poetry of that speech. You're not giving me any of that. It's just you being in front of a close-up on television. And these speeches don't work too well that way. They were really written, even the internal speeches, to be heightened. But each actor you work differently with. You have to, some people, you've got to go in a different direction. Frank, Aaron, I like the playfulness you're getting with him and the joy. I don't feel dangerous about him. I don't feel the danger of him. And I think that's part of it.
I
You know what I
have a
mean?
question about him.
Yeah.
At that particular time, because
Oh,
he's in this, he's surrounded by all of these men, and he's trying to
yeah.
tell them the truth of what's going on. So he's talking to everybody, he's talking to everyone around. My question is how to do that is still not upstage for out here for the audience to see what he's talking to the people that captured him.
Yeah.
He has to come clean. You say, you know, he's the cause of all of this bullshit
I
that's
think he
going
has
on.
to come clean, but he has great authority. He has great charisma.
But he loves what he's saying too. He loves
Yeah.
that he's getting under their skin too. That's the.
He is a natural leader,
Mm.
I think, Aaron. Women love him, men love him. There's a charisma about him. I don't think he has to work hard for anybody. I think he has, you know what I mean, that sense of when I say something, you'll buy it. There's something about him that really can be that.
But the underlying thing here is he's trying to save his son. And that's his thing.
No, I understand.
He's trying to save his son.
But the way he can save his son is
Yeah.
different than somebody else. The way he saves his son is to be authoritative and maybe, you know, not so playful, like, you know, this guy was kind of like almost Puck today. There was a Puck-like thing about Aaron. And I don't think you need to, you can enjoy it, but in a way that you know, he's a stud. And he really, you know, he knows his power. So he's gonna get what he wants. He doesn't have a slightest worry about that. Or at least he's not gonna let them know that. I would, because you have that strength physically, and I think you can use that. Just by standing there, you don't have to do much. You know what I mean? It's gonna be there, and you know, he has very little on there. You know, what he does, he's always showing his chest probably and all that stuff. You know, he's quite a guy. I would go more in that direction than, you made him smaller today, I thought, a little bit.
Frank has a wonderful ability. Whenever I see you perform, I see a crystal lake and I can see deep down inside. I can see the bottom of the lake.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, it's the only way I can describe it. I think you have a lot of, this depth, and you can play with it. But whenever you speak, whenever you do the Shakespeare especially, I find it's a clear pool that I can see into.
Right, you got a good sense of doing the Shakespeare, which is
That's a good, that's actually, think about that, everybody. You gotta be a pool for the audience to peer into that. You know, I don't know how you translate it, I don't know how to, but that's, you have to look into a person's soul when you're on, you have to be able to show your soul on stage in a certain way.
So Tom, this character was what, from Winter's Tale?
It's a tail shepherd, yeah.
Yeah, it was you. You know, you used yourself very well and very natural, I thought.
And I was trying to be angry because Eddie was practicing with me, so he wanted me to begin to show that I was angry at somebody.
Right, well,
I tried to show that, I hope.
I just got a good sense of the naturalness
Yeah.
of the speech. And Noah, you're Richard III, Noah, you said, oh, I don't know if I should do it again, they've all seen it, who cares? And the point is that each time you bring it back, you find new things, you do it differently, and it's a reminder that when you do these roles, Shakespeare particularly, the reason they've lasted is because you can bet your dollars that each time you look at it, you're gonna find something new. And you're gonna grow as an actor by going back to it, rather than, oh, I've done that, you know? Oh, they're gonna be bored, you found a lot today, I thought. Yeah, you changed gears quite beautifully, with the speech, you know, kind of instinctively, which I like, and you're almost, the best parts were the simplest parts, I thought. Even though I like the fact that you're playing with the words, and I love that, some of the best parts for me were when you didn't play with the words, but you were very, very simple with it, and just said it. Sometimes I feel you think you have to do a lot with it to be imaginative or funny or you know, kind of catch their attention. But you have a good command of